if we don't win that parent lottery where we get just fantastic parents that make great decisions, we're going to learn some decision-making processes that probably aren't the greatest. Well, good morning, Matt.
Morning, Zane.
Hey, it's interesting. Sometimes I'll stop and ask a question that I don't really know the answer to, but it helps just to stop and think about the question and try to develop some thoughts. And the question I had with my brother this morning when we were working out, we said, why do people make decisions the way they do? And with a history of having not been successfully making good decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think we've all, we've all had whatever friends are seeing this, and maybe if we're really being honest, we say, let's be honest. If we look at ourselves and say, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? And what we have to realize is a lot of it has to do with how our lives were set up when we're 8, 9, 10 years old. And that's where most of our decision-making processes come from, is we model what we've seen with our siblings, with our friends, with our parents from a relatively young age. And if we don't have, if we don't win that parent lottery where we get just fantastic parents that make great decisions, we're going to learn some decision-making processes that probably aren't the greatest. And so how do we go about changing those? And that was kind of the question we ran about this morning during our workout. And what we came up with was we make decisions based on what we've experiences in the past. And it's not even so much we make a decision where we stop and say, is this a good decision? Is this a smart decision? Is it a successful decision? We just make it based on how we feel. And it's based on our experiences, if you will. And so how do we change that? How do we get better at it? It seems obvious that we would stop and say, okay, let me look at where I've come from and realize maybe I haven't made the best decisions in the past. Whether it's about life or family or friends or relationships or businesses, as we work with a lot of business people, and realize, okay, what we need to do is stop and see who's been influencing our decisions. Where do our instincts come from? Because it's human nature. We all want to feel like we're making good decisions, like we're guiding our lives. And yet when we stop and look at it, those decisions aren't always the best when we see what really happens going forward. Does that make sense?
Oh, perfect sense. And again, this is something that's near and dear to me. I have a lot of family members who've made what I would consider goofy decisions considering their track records, but they keep making these decisions. Like, well, this didn't work out for you the last 5 times you made these decisions. Even people with one family member in particular, she makes declarations about what she's going to do and then doesn't do them. And then by the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th time, you're like, listen, I know you're telling me you're going to do these things, but why don't you just stop telling me you're going to do them? Because we know you're not going to do them. And
based on your track record.
There's always an excuse of like, well, I couldn't do it last time because of this, or this is what happened here, but this time it's really going to work. And it's like,
well, we always
stop.
You just hit on something where when things don't work out, there's two things to do. One is we can find a reason, an excuse. We can blame it on someone or some instance or some event and say, well, it didn't work out. It would have worked out. It was a good decision. It would have worked out, but this happened.
Right.
Okay. Or we can look internally and say, okay, what didn't I consider? What didn't I see? What good advice did I not seek out? Or what bad advice did I follow? And it takes, I guess it takes slowing down and being conscious and saying, okay, I haven't done the best in the past at these decisions. Let's change them.
Right.
Rather than just saying, okay, that's not on me because this happened. That one's not on me because this happens. And we can take very obvious ones where maybe our parents, God bless them, we all have parents and we all want to love them, but okay, our parents didn't have the best nutrition. and our parents were overweight. And 61% of overweight kids have overweight parents. So we have to stop and look at it and say, okay, my decision-making process is just on what I eat or how I work to maintain my weight. I can't just look at it and say, it's just my genes. Look at my parents. It's in my DNA.
Right.
Okay. No, it's in the decision-making process. We have to realize, okay, I wasn't given the best examples in the past, so let's consciously change those and go forward with a different way of making decisions.
Right.
And that's really difficult. And what we have to do is we have to surround ourselves with people, friends, family, business associates, whatever, that make better decisions.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. The bottom line is you have to establish some sort of ownership with the outcome of your decisions, or else you just push the consequence of poor decisions off onto the world, and you continue on the path of making poor decisions.
And it allows you to continue. You feel good about yourself because you've come up with a reason why it wasn't your fault.
Right.
And that's human nature. We all have a tendency to do that rather than stopping and saying, wait a minute. The last 3 times I've thought about this particular subject, I've done this. That didn't turn out so good. So what do we need to do different? And one of the big things is let's go search out people who are truly good at making decisions based on whatever we're looking into. So let's say it's an investment.
Sure.
Okay. Who do I want to listen to? Do I want to listen to the guy that I bowl with on Tuesday night and say, hey, let me run this by you. You tell me what you do about this decision, about this investment. Or do we want to go and listen to someone who's made smart decisions with investments many, many times? They're well known for their success in terms of investing. What do we tend to do, though?
Proximity. Whoever you're around, you're going to ask.
Yeah, we're going to talk to whoever we're bowling with, whoever happens to play on our softball team, maybe our coworker, that we go to lunch with every day, and we get these bits of advice. And there's what's called confirmation bias, which if we want to hear the story, we start looking for people that will give us the story we want to hear to make us feel good about it. So I want to make a particular investment, and gosh, my buddy on the bowling team, he thinks it's a good idea. Okay, and my coworker down the hall, they think it's a good idea. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. Versus searching out and saying, let's find somebody that really knows what they're doing and who's experienced in this, and then make the decision. Okay, right. Because we want to feel smart in directing our own lives, and unfortunately, we get into a habit of making these decisions based on, like you say, proximity.
Right.
Whoever's around, maybe talking to a relative, talking to a family member. You and I both have talked pretty extensively about real estate and investing. And one of the, early on, 23, 24 years old, when I was looking at buying my second house, and my dad asked me, who would ever need 2 houses? Why would you buy a second house? Now, that didn't tell me anything negative about my dad. It didn't tell me, oh, my dad's not a smart man. I'm way smarter, whatever in terms of investing. What it told me was my dad's not the person that I want to seek out and listen to for investment advice on buying real estate.
Right. If he doesn't even know the fundamental answer to why would you want more than one house,
yeah,
probably not the person you want to be asking. But again, if I may, the issue with proximity is it swings both ways, because you have incidental proximity and then you have intentional proximity, right?
Yep.
Incidentally, it's like, oh, I work with this guy and I like real estate and he wants to talk to me about real estate. Great, whatever. But it's not qualifying that person. You just work in the cubicle next to him or the office next to him. Versus intentional proximity, which is I want to get to know the best real estate investors around.
Exactly.
And I want to take them out to lunch. I want to buy them coffee. I want to put myself intentionally around them, even if I don't add anything to the conversation, but I want to be part of that group.
I'm going to be around people that are smarter than me at this particular, and I sometimes stop myself when I've got a decision to make. And I try to humble myself a little bit and say, if I was a smart person, what would I do? And I think just that one step right there, and go, well, let's see. what would a smart person do? And rather than going with what we've been kind of trained to do from 8 or 9 or 10 years old and take that level, if you will, of thought process and go, well, this is what feels right, so this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
But I stop myself and say, well, if I was a smart dude, or if I was smarter than I am now, what would I do? And if I don't have a good answer to that, what am I going to do? Just like you said, intentionally go find someone or somehow get involved, whether it's a group or a club or whatever, and go, okay, you guys talk about this every night that you meet. Will you allow me to sit around and talk and listen to you?
Right. Buffett in his book, The Snowball, which came out decades ago, I read it, and he talks about, like a sphere of influence, or essentially just saying that people are really limited with what they're actually smart at. Mm-hmm. Right. And he's like, look, I'm smart at this thing. I'm not smart at all of these other things, but I know this one thing well. So in response to your question, what would a smart person do? I always came at real estate from saying, look, the first thing I need to assume is that I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
That's what smart people do. They realize they don't have all the answers. They realize the things they actually know are extremely limited, and they instantaneously know that they need to seek outside counsel from qualified people to give direct answers. But it's starting with the idea that, hey, I don't actually have anything to add here, but I should find, or I can find, people that do have something to add.
Yeah. And that's a huge step. And maybe that's the answer to what we are driving at here is realize, okay, a lot of people will not search out advice at all. Okay. That's the lowest level.
Right.
Okay.
They just walk around knowing it all. Whatever.
Just walk around, make a decision based on maybe how their family went, how their parents went, whatever, how their friends do things. Right. And my Lord, if you don't happen to have really good qualified people around you, there's that bottom level. And that's a person that's going to repeat making decisions improperly or maybe not the best decisions. Then there's the next level, and you shared this with me before we even came on the air. The next level is a person that will actually maybe hear recommendations, but then they don't follow them. They kind of put their own spin on it. And that's problematic in itself, but at least they listened a little bit and maybe got a new idea, but then they went ahead with whatever their hunch was.
Right.
And a lot of people do their investments with this where I'll, go through a new client's investment portfolio and go, okay, who set this up? Well, I was talking with a friend of mine and they recommended this. And then I talked to, my cousin in Thanksgiving and he recommended this. And okay, here's a hodgepodge of.
Yeah, right. You either don't take advice from anyone or you take advice from anyone you happen to be around.
From everyone.
And just zero qualification. It's my cousin, it's my coworker, it's my bowling league teammate. Yeah. You just take all of the advice.
And we can run this out to whatever.
Right.
Parenting, how many parents stop and go, hey, I've never really raised kids before. I can either go with how my parents raised us, or maybe let's go talk to people who have raised kids that turn out to be really good kids. Let's go talk to them. Maybe they know a little something that we don't.
Right.
So there's so many different aspects of whether it's raising kids, whether it's finances, whether it's your career and where to go.
Right. To that point, there was I just thought about this as we were chatting. When I was young, I think I was 25. I was about to get married. I was also about to buy my second investment property. This was a large 4-unit property right next to a prominent university in California. And I was like, this is it. And it was a really, I would say, a risky deal. It was 100% finance because the seller's husband had passed away. He was a hoarder. The place was stacked. It needed all this work. I didn't know anything about it. Great. Like, I'll take it. 100% financing. It was at 9%, very risky. And there was, I had collected a couple real estate mentors by this time, and I worked through all the things, and they had reservations, but they're like, okay, look, I understand why you're doing it. Like, this is definitely a risk, but if you can manage the risk, you'll be fine. Okay, fine. And there was one guy that was a client of mine, just not real estate, but just in my education company. And he worked for Wells Fargo, who's way up, loved stocks and bonds, was this big guy. He had nothing good to say about it. Because, as I respected him as an intelligent person, and he would just trash on the point of real estate. He was giving me this horrible time about, the turn of the market and all of these different things. And at some point I just had to realize, like, okay, look, this guy's got money. He's got millions of dollars, but he's also not someone who has lived a real estate investing life. He not professionally, not personally. It's not something he believes in.
Yeah.
So it's even fair to say he has money, but he's not the type of person I should be looking to if I want to make successful real estate investments.
Absolutely.
Right. So even in the case of qualifying somebody, you could have somebody who's achieved something that you want, but if they've achieved it in a way that you're not trying to achieve it in, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. No. And so the different levels, the first one is don't listen to anybody. Second one, listen to everybody and bounce all over the place.
Right.
Or like you realize, I can listen to someone who doesn't have, they've got some success in some field, but not necessarily the one I want. And then you've got the best decision-making process, and that is let's listen to some people that are really good at it. And when we talk about our gatherings and getting together and building a legacy life, it comes down to let's surround ourselves with people who are good at making decisions, and someone in the room is going to be pretty good at whatever subject comes up, whatever topic comes up, and we're going to work it through. And I have people, when they go back to their, wherever they live, they go back to their homes, and I'll get emails from them a week or two later, and they go, I didn't go there expecting to get that advice, or I didn't go there to, get better at this process, but my Lord, that's what I came away with.
Right.
And that's what's really powerful. When we talk about this decision-making process, hopefully we're moving forward in a, what we call PTC, present time consciousness, where we stop and go, okay, this is an important decision. I don't want to just do what I've done in the past or what, go with my hunches. Let's get some advice. Let's get around people that make good decisions. And as we go through life, hopefully we become that sage person, that elder that's giving generational wisdom because they've picked it up over many, many years, and we can pass it on to our offspring, to our younger generations, and we can bring up, civilization as a whole to make better decisions. And so no matter where we are, if we won the parent lottery and we got wonderful people around us, great parents, wonderful. If we didn't get that, then we need that consciousness to say, okay, I don't have that decision-making process for this particular decision. I'm going to search it out. I'm going to find these people, associate with them, not just because I play softball or bowl with them or whatever.
Intentional proximity.
And just be conscious that, okay, be humble enough that we need to search out some advice and then we need to follow it. And I really think that's one of the keys in progressing forward with our family and with our lives towards a more successful life and building a legacy.
I agree.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.